Hello, hello, and welcome to another episode of Walk the Dog Cinema. Here we are on a nice afternoon. It's first day of fall, basically, or fall, and just enjoying a nice walk here with the Roca Brew. Getting out. Just got back home from work, and so just she's bouncing off the wall. She's so excited, and she's ready to go, and so am I. I hope you're all ready to listen to the review. The movie I'm going to talk about today is the brand new Superman. It's on HBO Max. Finally got to take a gander at it. I've seen every Superman movie. He's kind of my first foray into movies. It's like 4 years old when Christopher Reeve's Superman came out. I used to, back in the day, read reprints of Action Comics, and was pretty big in Superman before I became a Hulkite. But Superman's always kind of been my DC hero, and so to say the least that this movie is interesting, a lot to talk about. So Roka's gonna get to her walk here, and I'm gonna get on with the review. So, Superman by James Gunn. I'm gonna say that for relative terms of DC starting their DCU, like Marvel's been doing, and kind of the shared universe, on one level, I see the potential. See some of the excitement, especially for like Supergirl. Again, spoilers, and that doesn't spoil everything, but spoilers big time. I'm gonna get into a lot of the weeds on this one, and I will say that I'm mixed on my reaction to the film. I inherently don't think it's a very good Superman movie, to be honest. Not a bad superhero movie, but as far as a Superman movie goes, this one's not all that good. As a DC world building kind of event thing, it works. It has some really good elements. I think James Gunn as a director kind of recycles the same shots, the same kind of things. Like I said, spoilers. There's a part with Metamorphoso, the Element Man in this, that you can take out of Guardians, that you can take out of Suicide Squad. I mean, it's I mean, he's ripping off himself, so I mean, there's that, but it's kind of the same joke, the same action, the same kind of overall relevance to kind of what he does. And so that kind of overarching kind of thought process runs through the whole movie. To be honest, I come with a lot of bias, so I can admit that. I'm a huge Superman 1 and 2 Christopher Reeve fan. I even kind of dig Superman 3 for what it does with evil Superman, and not a very good Brainiac in that one, but just overarching kind of feel to that. With him going back to Smallville and stuff, I kind of like dig all that. That one's a little bit nostalgia filled, but at the same time, I haven't seen Superman Returns in a heck of a long time, but I remember kind of just being ambivalent about that one. But Man of Steel kind of had some interesting concepts to it. I thought it was dark, but as a kind of pre-Superman-ish movie where Superman's coming into his own, where before he becomes Superman, I thought it was an interesting exploration of that thought process before he was Superman, instead of just becoming Superman right out of the gate. The problem with Man of Steel is that all the follow-up stuff just didn't elevate that movie in any way, shape, or form, or ever develop on with Batman versus Superman and Justice League and all that. So a lot of that failure comes from that. So I have to admit, I come with a heavy bias. I've read lots of Superman comic books in my day, still read comics here and there. Superman is one of them. I do read that and Action Comics. So to say I extensively kind of bring a lot with the character would be to say the least. I've read all the way back to the 30s and 40s, what I can get a hold of. So there's a lot of Superman knowledge for myself on that. And so I recognize that within the scope of this, I may not be the full target audience, so to speak, in one sense. And I'll kind of get to that. Me and my son had a really interesting conversation because, I talk about movies being fun. And on one level, this movie is fun, in spite of its flaws. I was entertained, so that's a good thing. And I guess, but the flip side of it is, I'll say the other point is, it kind of gets the feel of Superman right, but as much as it gets right, it also kind of gets wrong. So it's this weird thing that plays in my head with it, and ultimately it's the stuff that's wrong with it weighs down any of the good. It doesn't mean I wouldn't want to see the world continue or even a sequel to see where it goes. So I wouldn't say I was just completely like throw my arms up in the air and oh my gosh, this is the most miserable stuff and how can they go in this direction? No. Maybe it's a movie I revisit after the second one comes out or something in a few years where you have a clearer mind about it, maybe. I don't know. But right now, it's just a lot with me doesn't set. Like, I kind of like the message. It has kind of a Superman message in it. I still think they get some things wrong within it. And within that message, they try to have their cake and eat it too, with like this kind of, without saying it, but saying it like, truth, justice in the American way. And I get that was started in the 40s or, and all that stuff. But besides the point, Superman polices kind of the world on a very, he's a Boy Scout. And James Gunn, I will say, plays with that a little bit. But, and Lex Luthor kind of represents this kind of globalist agenda, but then it kind of isn't. It's kind of very, America first kind of, I don't know. It like the messaging within Lex Luthor is kind of muddled to me. And I'm going to say that the guy, the actor who plays Lex Luthor, I think does a fairly decent job of capturing Luthor's evil in that regard. Capturing his smugness, that he's the biggest brain. I think they do some missteps with Luthor by having him have a temper tantrum, so to speak. I'm not saying that Lex Luthor can't have anger, but Lex Luthor would never be a petulant child. I know there's some comics that writers have done that does not make it a good writing. It's I'm not even coming at it from even like how Gene Hackman handled Lex Luthor. I'm really coming at it from a comic book standpoint, that he's been so tied, kind of like Joker, that if you mess the character up, you kind of also mess Superman up a little bit if you're going to have him in the movie. So, there's that fine line. And again, as much as they get right with Luthor, the other aspect of it is the one part they kind of get wrong with Luthor kind of undermines it all a little bit. And so, it's kind of like, darn, Luthor is very egotistical. He's a narcissist. He's a sociopath. And if you just stay within those realms and not get into the perpetuance of his acting like a child and kind of being ruthless and not caring, but Luthor would never ever do anything that would remotely put himself in jeopardy in any way, shape, or form. That really comes down to the climax for me. And so I'll get all to that in just a minute. You know, I kind of know I'm being all over the place, but, you know, these are all these thoughts that just kind of kept ringing through my head. And ultimately, you know, I don't mind that it started kind of in the middle of Superman being here on Earth. I don't mind that we don't see all of that, and we just kind of get, you know, the voiceover in the beginning and all that. And it's an interesting start to the movie with Superman getting his butt kicked, and how that all kind of pays off on one level, though. Yeah, it kind of has, but to me, Guardians of the Galaxy kind of issue. I love Guardians. I think James Gunn with B-side characters can be great. He did great with Creature Commandos. Like I said, with Guardians, I kind of like his Suicide Squad. But when it comes to not weird characters, and Superman is not weird. He's a Boy Scout. I'll say it's a hard ask on one level to really capture Superman in that regard, because how do you deal with someone who is always operating on morally right? He's not operating on what's right for the government. He's always operating on what's morally right. He's a Boy Scout. And so that can really paint you in a corner as a writer, and I get it. And that's where some missteps kind of happen with Superman. But the flip side of it is, you know, there's these like wildly comedic moments, or trying to be, with Crypto in the beginning, and then Crypto gets it, the dragon, like it's just kind of a little all over the place for me. And it's James Gunn's humor that really doesn't work with Superman. Superman, to me, you know, the deadpan humor works better with him because he is a Boy Scout. Like, Superman isn't in and of himself not humorous as a person. I think that's where, like, Man of Steel kind of gets things wrong. It takes it a little too pretentious and things like that. That's kind of the one downside of it, where why everyone, or most people, when they see Superman 1 and 2 in the Christopher Reeve run with it, is Christopher Reeve's humanity and dry humor come at great bursts, and you know, and how he masked that with Clark kind of being bumbling a little bit. But even the old George Reeves 1950 TV serial really captures those differences in that regard, where, you know, there's the human side of Superman is that he's got a sense of humor, even about himself. I mean, he's a god, for crying out loud. I mean, nothing really can stop him on this planet. He could literally wreak havoc, and the central point of this movie kind of goes into that. And, you know, some of our humanity in dealing with some of those themes is humor. And, you know, kind of stepping away where Superman doesn't have some dry wit to him, or how he handles situations per se, can be lost. There was a sequence that kind of put it on the edge for me. It was a really emotional moment with Lois, where she, you know, Superman is just, again, with the central plot. Sorry, I jumped really ahead here, but he's you know, he just found out from the world, because Lex somehow gets into the Fortress of Solitude. I'm not going to ruin that moment, but how he gets in there, gets some like digital extraction of Jor-El and his mom talking about why they sent, you know, Kal-El, Superman, to planet Earth. There's a damage to it that only Superman knows the beginning. Lex Luthor gets a bunch of linguists together, and they decipher the second part, which is that Superman is to have a harem of women and basically repopulate the planet to make it another Krypton. In and of itself, that seems just ludicrously kind of a dumb plot to me. Undermines kind of everything we know about Jor-El. I'm not terribly like, oh my gosh, about that. I just think it's kind of out there. But how Superman takes it, he's already kind of an older, and he's been dealing with things as Superman. So we're not talking about a young Superman here. We're talking about a Superman who's been going at it for like 3 years. We're talking about, someone who recently got with Lois Lane for like 3 months. There's a lot of threes in this movie. I don't know inherently the significance unless, but James Gunn used that number for some reason. I don't know. But anyhow, Lois kind of has his back after the world finds out that basically Superman was sent to Earth to rape all the women and birth lots of super babies. And Superman's been doing all this good for 3 years, and immediately everyone's like, oh, believe Lex Luthor. Those plots always kind of drive me a little nuts because they're a little bit kind of like plot armor-ish at times. They can be done well, but to me, this one just kind of didn't ring. So maybe the central push of the whole movie just kind of right then and there felt a little hollow. They figure out Kryptonian language from linguists like it's no tomorrow, even though no one knows the language, ever heard of the language or anything about it. So it's kind of like, oh, okay, I guess. I mean, we'll just go with it. But like I said, it just kind of felt like, oh, wow. And then Superman kind of reevaluates his whole existence, even though I personally don't know if you would. I mean, I know you would question your birth parents and maybe your Kryptonian heritage on that level, but not your mission here, where he would definitely, maybe be pissed about that, but not question, like, is he evil? Because he's never done anything evil. So that central theme to Superman, especially in this movie, just kind of, to me, just was a head shaker. But in that, Lois comes to his defense, kind of is like, oh, it's okay, Superman. And they have this really nice, heartfelt scene. I think both actors do well with the scene. But in the background, because we've been introduced to the Justice League, aka the Justice Gang, and then that's a whole joke that keeps running through that's just, to me, woefully James Gunn, that I think I just get tired of because, again, it's just rehashing all his other stuff. And so, again, it's kind of these things with James Gunn that would maybe be characters and people that we don't like normally think about or know. But with Superman, it just doesn't work. But he's sitting there, and again, knowing how Superman is, I could see the humor from his side on one level, but he just passively sits there. He's just so passive, and oh yeah, the Justice Gang's got this. I mean, there's literally this like large monster jellyfish thing, and you can tell it's a Green Lantern fighting it, and we know that Hot Girl would be there, and we see the spheres of Mr. Terrific, who, by the way, was kind of a cool character in it. I mean, it was nice seeing a pretty screen accurate Mr. Terrific, but at the same time, it's just always in the background, and it's just supposed to be funny, and I call it the Drax effect. Guardians, it worked. We had stuff with Peter and Gamora, and it's very heartfelt and loving, and there'd be Drax doing his comedy bit to shake it up and kind of ruin the moment. Well, that works for Guardians. To me, it's so stupid for Superman. And he does that with Superman's dad, Pa Kent and Ma Kent. He's got them as these redneck country bumpkins, but Clark doesn't act like a country bumpkin. And so you're thinking, wow, like Superman grew up with like people who literally talk like, I'm a redneck. Oh yeah, and the performances are literally that stereotypical. But then, and I don't mind the stereotype, so to speak. I'm just coming at it that Clark isn't like that. And on one level, these are the people who raised him to be so wise, but they undermine their wiseness with this kind of country bumpkin thing and shtick that's absolutely supposed to be funny because they're wise, and it's all over the place for me on that level. And so these little missteps, you know, and some of them are kind of big, but you know, the comedy aspect of it is just completely just out there, undermining any gravitas that's being built. And you'd say, well, he's just having fun. Yeah, but we get a great scene on one level, even though it's kind of impossible that Superman saves a woman's life, and then we get him rising up into the sun. You get the superhero shot. It's a cool Superman thing. And I mean, then we get like a joke like within a minute of that, and we don't get to savor even the shot. It's like, let's just cut to a joke. And you're just kind of like, really? You know, I mean, he's saving people, and we got to cut to him saving a squirrel. And on one level, it's like utterly ridiculous because, you know, I mean, we're showing Superman's humanity on that, but at the same time, we're going to get a joke out of it. I don't know. It just, James Gunn is not the writer or director for Superman. He's woefully to me inadequate to parlay, and I'm not looking for pretentiousness, but I do ask for a little bit of seriousness with Superman, for crying out loud. And I don't mind the humor, but Superman's about relationships and dealing with our problems, and this movie kind of just doesn't deal with that. And it's okay to have fun, but not at the expense of the story, so to speak. And that's what kind of happens here to me. So watch Superman at your own peril. I'm kind of looking forward to other stuff, maybe, as long as James Gunn stays away from any of the big guys. He would be woefully inadequate to do a Wonder Woman. Please keep him away from Batman. You know, I don't mean Batman can't have humor in it, but his writing style just would not work for Batman. So DC, whatever you do, please keep him away from it. And yeah, he's going to be doing The Man of Tomorrow, which just got announced. So there's that. We'll see what he does with it. But I think he's woefully the wrong person to handle Superman on lots of levels. That's my own bias. That's my own opinion on that. Tell me what you think in the comments below. If I'm crazy, I'm crazy. So be it. But I'm sticking to that. That's just how I feel about the character. So there's that. Let me know in the comments below. And if you like what you hear or want to join in and hear about my takes, please subscribe. Have a good one, everybody.